Hey everybody, Matt here from Matt's Movies, Music and More, welcoming you to this week's episode of What Did You Think? Now, as you'll recall, the previous movie was Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, which was from the drama category, and to replace that movie on the Twister Spinner, it's now been replaced with Mud.
Mud.
Yeah, not actual Mud, but the movie Mud starring Matthew McConaughey. So I'm looking forward to checking that one out at some point. What about you?
I'd be curious about it based on friends' reactions, that's what I'll say.
Cool. So as you'll know from the last video, the Twister Spinner landed on Thriller, and the movie that came from Thriller is the 2017 movie Get Out.
Get Out!
Starring Daniel Kaluuya and Alison Williams, Catherine Keener and Bradley Whitford. And it's directed by Jordan Peele, who also wrote it. So, Get Out. Go on then, fuck off. Go.
Well, if that's the attitude,
No, I'm
you're
joking,
gonna...
I'm joking.
Take.
I'm joking, it's all good, man.
No, we were going to do that joking in this video sooner or later.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so Get Out. And so, had you seen it before it came up on this video? And if so, when was that?
Hello, I'm Andrew, by the way. It's all right. It's definitely one of those movies that I meant to see, but something must have come up. I can't remember what right now off the top of my head. When does this come out?
It came out in the early 2017.
Early
February,
2017. So obviously some other Oscar contender must have cropped up instead. But everything I've heard from friends and critics tells me that this was one of the hot movies of the year. So I feel like I have corrected a fault.
But did you feel that when you saw it, that you were seeing it just because of everyone's reactions, or are you one of these people that will happily go along with the hype? Because I'm not a big fan of hype.
To answer that question, probably a little bit of the former, but now that I have seen it, I can give it a general summation that yes, this is a genuinely original horror movie, and that I am glad to have joined the party, the hype train.
So we don't, in this one, I know that we tend to do spoilers, but I'm hoping, fingers crossed, we're not going to spoil the movie too much, because really this is a movie that you have to see. I saw this movie before it came up on Twister Spinner a few months back, and I was shocked and also left with a feeling of uncomfortableness. I don't know if that would make sense, meaning to do with the situation with the story, because of the interracial relationships and stuff like that, being white and stuff. I mean, it can be very controversial when people look at it that way. I mean, I'm not that way myself, but I can see that a lot of people out there who are bigoted and racist, they would find this story very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I think I've left you speechless for the first time here.
A little.
Because I think we're a bit worried about offending people.
Well, no, because I've forgotten what your question at the beginning of that sentence was. It may be a touch of the white man guilt, or if I don't like this at all, then it's because I'm not the right skin colour to enjoy it. Oh yeah, that's what the beginning of your sentence was. Yes, I can wholeheartedly endorse going into this blind and not knowing what happens at the end. I'd seen enough on the internet to know what happens at the end, but I'm not going to spoil it for you out there. Except I'll say that this is definitely one of those movies you can watch blind and then watch it again knowing what happens in it and spotting all the clues.
Yeah.
Second time round.
When I watched it, I knew nothing about it. I just knew that it was the movie that you have to see. So I fell for the hype trip.
Shall I at least set it up?
Yes, that would be a good idea, as long as you don't give too much away to our audience, because you really do need to see this.
Chris is a black man living in the city who has a white girlfriend called Rose, and the weekend has come. The time has come for him to meet her parents out in the south somewhere, I think. And there is some light-hearted tension about how will these white parents react to a black boyfriend, especially from Chris's boorish, loud traffic warden friend who's saying this is not a good idea, man, jokingly. But they drive out, and at first it seems like the parents are very nice and accommodating, but very quickly it becomes a bit off and odd where they are. It seems like the parents are a bit too keen to prove that they are nice liberal people who don't have any problems with black people. Honestly, look at all this proof that we are not racists. Also, they have two black people working for them.
Yeah.
And on top of that, these black people seem to have a detached look in their eyes and a detached means of talking.
Yeah, because they don't talk like black people, do they? They talk more like white people the way they talk. But they're like, oh, you don't need to worry, everything's okay. Rather than they'll be like, what you looking at, fool? Everything's good, you know?
And with that this weekend just happening to be the same weekend that some guests are coming around with very similar, oh, we're for the blacks attitude, the more it becomes obvious, oh, and also the mother is a skilled hypnotist, that something is going on here.
Well, it does start weird at the beginning because you just have a random scene which you don't know about until a lot later in the movie, in which this black guy is walking down the street in a really dark, quiet neighbourhood where nothing's going on. Must be the early hours of the morning. Yeah. And a vehicle's sort of following him, but because he's walking in one direction, he decides to turn back on himself, and without knowing it, he gets knocked down, whatever. Yeah.
I can imagine, that must have struck... It sets out its message right out of the gate and strikes a chord with certain members of the audience. So you've got them hooked here. But also, the car is playing Run, Rabbit, Run, which is a little bit on the nose. But between that and the violin string music that's playing here, I did feel an odd sense of... this is actually playing like a good classical horror movie should play out here. You've got my attention here. It sounds like you know what you're doing here.
It makes me think that this movie would work well as a double bill with a very similar titled movie that came out a few years back, which I think is quite underrated, whether or not you've seen it, called You're Next, which...
no, but I do remember... I remember the title in a very similar joking way that I've said, Get Out! Yeah. It's a very eye-catching title. You're Next!
Yeah. So when I hear You're Next, it always makes me think of the classic lines from Kevin McCarthy in The Invaders of the Body Snatchers when he's talking to camera.
Of course.
But going back to Get Out, Jordan Peele, who wrote and directed it, he's actually not... from this background of movie making at all. He is a comedian, and that's his background. So to do something like this is quite unusual for him, I guess. And I recall, I might be wrong, but I think he was nominated for Best Screenplay or something for this movie, because they said it was a big deal when it came out, you know, the screenplay.
Yes.
Because it's unusual for... thrillers or horrors in that sort of vein, because it is a horror movie, but it's also a thriller or psychological thriller, as they call it with Silence of the Lambs all those years ago. But for them to get nominated
for most of the movie, it's that.
Yeah, but for it to be nominated for that, that's a big achievement. Clearly shows that the Oscars are changing a little bit.
Or feeling that they need to actually recognise these things, especially if the box office numbers or audience reactions say so. This didn't come out during the Oscar window, I think, but it got such a reaction that they had to take it seriously. Yeah. And it's definitely signalled, I feel, a shift in American horror movies, at least at the moment, because... I saw A Quiet Place this year, and with that you've got the director and star of that, John Krasinski, who is known for comedy. So this seems to have been a thing that Hollywood has either latched onto or hopes it will work again and again. You wouldn't think a comedy guy could do a horror movie or know how to do a horror movie, and yet here we are with this movie. It works, and it's actually a biting social commentary. type story.
So it's kind of probably got an underlining message in a Trump era America.
That's the thing. I feel that's the best. Often the best horror is one that resonates with social political issues of the time, or at least could strike a chord with the audience that feels this is like something that's going on in the real world.
But with that, do you think that this movie could then effectively, its meaning could change depending on if the social landscape changes in America from when Trump is no longer president and it goes maybe to a coloured president or maybe a female president or something like that? Could it change?
What do you mean? The meaning
of the film,
within the movie?
Yes.
It's the narrative itself?
Yes, because clearly it's obviously poking at current present-day America, which is very racist and very bigoted towards women and African Americans and lots of other people out there.
Well, at the very least, it'll be a important snapshot of the period it was made.
It wouldn't surprise me if this movie will eventually get the status where a lot of American movies get, where it will be preserved. I think this is one that will be preserved for historical things.
It will at least be on lists of greatest movies or some such.
Yeah, because it deserves to be, and I really liked it, even though it's a very uncomfortable watch.
Because it's got layers. The fact that Chris, which I didn't mention at the start, is a cameraman. He's a photographer. We establish this with big examples of his work in his apartment. But more to the point, he's always got a camera or a camera phone on him all the time. And it kind of acts as a shield almost, because he uses it to take pictures of relevant things that he thinks are a bit off. Like I say, the black people who work there, and even without going into spoilers, he takes a picture of a black guest, and this becomes important in identifying what's going on. And whenever the camera phone has been mysteriously unplugged from its battery charger, there's a sense of threat of something is going on. These people know, and they're trying to conceal it. So not only is the camera does its job as a shield or a tool between the observer and the observed, but also you think of things like Saw and peeking through the door in Psycho. History has a long and distinguished horror of observation, of peeking, and the fact that this builds on that is like you're respecting your roots here, you're carrying on traditions here in a very subtle thematic way.
Yeah. The fact that this movie has made so much money on a really low budget of just under $5 million, it took a gross of over $250 million in America alone. So really did a good job for the production house called Blumhouse Productions.
Blumhouse?
Yeah, Blumhouse, yeah. They've recently released Happy Death Day and are the people behind the new Halloween reboot. Yeah.
They've quickly become the kings of the horror genre in Hollywood at the time of recording this, and I don't know if it's a foundation, one of the first things they did, but it has been a significant milestone in establishing that.
Going on to the actors in this movie.
Also, I would like to stress that I am quite happy that a cheap horror movie has done really well at the box office without needing to be found footage. You know the sort of movies I'm talking about, Paranormal Activities. There has been, for quite a few years now, there has been a critical disdain of the horror genre because it feels like so much of it is based around we're going to, it's real found footage, honest, of inside a house, and it's sitting in silence or trying to establish some silence before, did that table just move? That table just moved!
You do realise that it's nearly 20 years ago since the Blair Witch Project came out. You forgot to mention that one.
Yeah, we'll tell that to the people in Hollywood that.
But yeah, I want to talk about the acting.
It feels like Get Out is the first step in making horror credible again.
I want to talk about the actors in this movie, and you keep bringing up points, and they're really good points. And the actors in this movie, I want to point out briefly. Daniel Kaluuya. Now, he's a British actor who I believe was in Skins, the TV series. I never saw it, but he does a good job in this role.
Yes, he is a sympathetic everyman character, or you root for him to survive this.
And because of this film, he went and did Black Panther.
Yeah.
He wasn't the Black Panther, as that was played by Chadwick Boseman, but he is in the movie. And I'm not going to mention the woman Alison Williams because I don't really know her work, but I really like the parents, played by Catherine Keener and Bradley Whitford. Bradley Whitford I've always been a huge fan of because the first film I ever saw him in was Revenge of the Nerds 2, Nerds in Paradise, in which he played the alpha beta jock who was kind of the smart but also a slimy weasel kind of character. And he played that for a number of years, even in like the Adam Sandler comedy Billy Madison, which I think he's great in. But he's best remembered for being in The West Wing, the TV series. And he was also in another horror film which came out a few years back with critical praise called Cabin in the Woods, in which he had quite a pivotal role in that. But to have him in this, it's clearly showing that he can do other things besides comedy and drama. And the same with Catherine Keener. I mean, Catherine Keener's been around for years, from like being John Malkovich, 8mm, the 4-year-old version. So to have her in this as well, it's a really believable couple. And obviously you've got the son, who's kind of this, wise ass kid. I think his name's Jeremy. And he's played by the guy that was in 3 Billboards from Ebbing, Missouri, Caleb Landry Jones. So to see him in this movie and 3 Billboards, I was like, I know that face, I know that voice.
That's the thing with watching so many recent movies in quick succession. There's going to be some overlap. But
you'll never guess who my favourite character is in Get Out. You can probably guess it.
Just tell me.
Rod. Rod is the main character's best friend.
He's, the traffic warden guy.
Yeah, okay. He works for, is it TSA?
Yes.
He works for TSA, and he's a wisecracking guy. So if you watch this movie and you see the coloured actors who are the groundskeepers at the Armitage home, and they're talking in normal white folk type English, and you've got Rod coming in doing his normal talk, you can really tell that there's a difference.
Why are you not scared about this, man? I agree. That helps to establish how weird this setting is compared with the outside world when you've got this guy from the outside world.
Because the location of their home is great, because their location is really isolated from anything. Yeah. There's nothing close proximity at all. There's a scene in the movie, which I don't want to spoil, which is very early on in the movie, in which the car that the couple are driving at the beginning of the movie towards going to the parents' home, they get pulled over by the police, and the police are saying, "Oh, well, who was driving the car?" And she's like, "Well, I was driving," and stuff. And he's like, "Well, sir, can I see your license?" And he's like, she says to the policeman, "He wasn't driving, it was me that was driving." And he's like, "Well, so I need to see his license." And then she's like, "Well, no, fuck that. Why do you need to see his license and stuff?" And eventually he gives in. He's like, "You got away lucky this time." But it's I suppose that's an early sign of racism in the movie, isn't it? Because just because he's a coloured guy, he wasn't even driving the vehicle, and already the policeman thinks it was him. Yeah. But did you expect, without spoiling the ending or anything like that, did you expect the movie to go the way it did in the story? Because I didn't.
I'm not sure if I feel qualified to talk about that, because I already saw the internet reviews describing this movie, so I already had the ending that turned out spoiled by that.
And I think that's the problem.
So I have to make guesswork as to, could I have possibly seen what direction this would have gone in, where the climax ends up. And and when it got there, I suppose I could say I had a faint suspicion, because I've seen the Stepford Wives. It's It's similar lines.
Yeah. The original or the Nicole Kidman one?
It doesn't matter.
I think it matters to the people who are fans of the Stepford Wives. But,
it does.
I do see your point on that regarding the similarity. Yeah.
That's all I really want to try and say here.
Yeah.
Maybe as another, again, there's not to do with plot, don't worry, but I was going to mention it sooner or later anyway, that Jordan Peele is now a hot ticket based on the success of this movie. There's speculation as to he's got a blank check to write whatever he wants for his next project, but the one thing that has been confirmed is that he is going to not only produce but host a reboot of The Twilight Zone. So not only can I say, thanks to this movie, we have the 21st century Rod Serling, but also seeing the way this story went and the way it ends up, I could go, yeah, I can totally see why you would do that based on the tone and the direction of this film.
I didn't have a clue about that at all, because I'm a huge Twilight Zone fan, so to me, any opportunity for it to come back would be great. And if it works, then fantastic. I could really see that getting picked up by some of the streaming services, television channels, because I just think that's got me all over it, really. But yeah, I mean, I really like this film. I thought it was really good. I've seen it twice, obviously second time for this video. I really don't know if I could see it again, because I mean, I know what's going to happen. I know, like with most movies, you watch them and you know what's going to happen, but it's one of those ones where I suppose it's like The Sixth Sense. It's a must-see twice movie, maybe. I mean, do you feel that way with it?
I do feel basically you can watch it the once to see the mystery unfold, and then watch it again at least once to then go, that was a clue to this, and that was what this meant.
So it does its job. So in a way, don't go out and buy the DVD and just watch it as a rental, I guess. But at the same time, it is a great film.
You can easily do that. It's viewing preference.
Yeah, it is a great film. It's definitely worth checking out. Everything about it, the music, because there's very minimalist on the music, and that works. The cinematography, the acting, everything. It's a perfect film, and you can see why it did so well. So I'm really glad it came up on the Twisted Spinner, actually, and I'm glad that we suggested it. So
I'm repeating what I said at the beginning. I'm glad I finally got a chance to see this and see what the fuss is about, and that fuss was justified. Good.
So I guess that was Get Out then. So a thumbs up from you, I guess.
You want me to do a thumbs
up? No, because that's trademarked by Siskel and Ebert. Okay. So yeah, that was Get Out, and
I think it's time.
Yeah, it's Twisted Spinner time. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, let's give it a whirl. And it's landed, but what has it landed on?
It's landed on horror.
It's horror. So what do we have then?
Well, according to the list, the horror movie it's landed on is Green Room. Another recent one. So that's a trilogy of recent films.
We're on a roll here, people.
Yeah, that's really up your alley then, isn't it? Because you love your recent films. So Green Room, from Get Out to Green Room.
That's almost alliterative.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's this episode of What Did You Think taken care of. So be sure to give us a like and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to check out the links in the video for the official Facebook, the Instagram, the Twitter, the Patreon, and of course the YouTube. We really want to hear from you and hope you can share this with your friends and family and everyone like that. So be sure to check out the next video. So all the very best to you from me and Andrew. Bye bye.